Aloha family, Spencer-Mack here. This is another TalkStory video / Q&A. I want to begin to be more consistent with answering questions so we get this conversation rolling. I know I've said that about 8 times now. Working on the consistency because I thoroughly enjoy some of the very in-depth individuals I'm connecting with through here. There's some epic humans out there, and when you connect with more people on the path, the more power you have. It's all about synergy. So I'll begin this with a rant and then go into some questions. Let's just go with synergy, with communication, communion, community. It's so important to communicate yourself. I know most of my videos are on health and diet and training, but you can be eating as healthy as possible and training perfectly and sleeping so well, but if you don't have the communion and your ability to communicate how you're feeling, to express yourself, to have your... I'm just seeing how bright I am on this. Let me adjust the light. How's that? Cool. If you don't have the ability to express yourself, the ability to communicate with yourself, with others, and the community to support you, you don't have the whole picture. This is a multiplex we're operating here. There's a lot of different variables involved, and all of them have to be balanced to rise up. Multiple pillars: diet, exercise, sleep, community, relationships. We have to be able to develop these things, and a lot of that comes down to knowing how you want to be communicated with and to knowing how you feel so you can express yourself honestly. Nobody wants to hang out with a person who's obviously not telling the truth. So being real, we love that. Community, communication, that's why I really appreciate this channel. I recommend finding a way to have a channel of expression, whether it's YouTube or a community setting or a church, whatever it may be. Another thought that I'd like to share. Recently I kind of hit a little plateau where I was just feeling like I wasn't growing. And I know in my life, if I'm not growing, I'm dying. It's one or the other, because there's no flat line, right? There's no in between. If you're a maybe, you're a no. Life grows. Death dissolves. And I know that it's necessary for me to challenge myself to grow. And I was in a place where I didn't know what my challenge was. It was hard for me to find it. I used to go to a martial arts school, and that was great because there were multiple people in there that could kick my ass, that were better and stronger than me. Where I live now, I don't have that kind of school, that kind of training. And it became very obvious the other day. My teacher is the ocean. She is so much more powerful than I am. And there's a lot of fear in me relating to that when it comes to surfing in particular. Some of the waves that come through here, the size of the sets are very intimidating, and I have been rocked multiple times, the edge of not making it back to the air. I can't breathe underwater. There's a lot of fear there for me. And I've also learned in this life, fear has to be the most valuable compass in this life. Fear is pointing in the direction of where you need to go. And I don't mean that in an ignorant way where I'm afraid to jump off of a roof and hit the ground. I mean that as in, there are places you know, wow, I'd really like to do that, but there's this resistance. You talk yourself out of it. You create all these excuses. So I've been, for the last 3 weeks now, going and surfing first thing in the morning. It's become my practice. Go throw my body in the ocean. If the waves aren't big enough to surf, I just get in the water. The water right now is my teacher. Especially if I get there early, it's nice and cold, and I get to work on my breath practice, I work on my swimming, I get some cryotherapy with the cold water, and surf has been really good the last few days, and it's very humbling because I suck at it. I didn't grow up with it. I've been doing it on and off for the last few years, but more off than on. So it's the perfect school for me. And as I have thrown myself into that world of discomfort and challenge, my life has gotten a lot better. I have a lot more fulfillment from that. I start my day knowing I've already, nothing really is coming up that's scarier than that. So I recommend finding that practice in your life. Where is that challenge? Some kind of training for me, it's always been. I've been into training for a long time, and it's necessary for my growth. So challenge yourself. Moving on to questions and answers. Oh, I'd also like to state, as for an update on my last video, I've been living mainly on the elixir, under 2,000 calories, mainly fats in the form of oils. And as of the last week, I've been down to around 6 hours of sleep, which is a good thing. 6 hours of good sleep. I just pass out, I wake up in the same position, and it's early. I've been getting up around 4 o'clock. So I make it to the beach nice and early, and the sleep's been deep. It's been one of the most productive weeks of my life. And it's amazing to witness how my external reality reflects that. When I'm more productive, my environment becomes clean. My team, even, the people that I work with, are on their game. The whole farm is locked down. It's amazing how your world begins to reflect you. So I'm very excited about the results so far. And that brings me into a question my friend asked me. Unfortunately, I can probably not pronounce this right. That vu gin. That vu gin. My brother that I've had a few excellent conversations with through the forum asks, "Awesome update, Spencer. Glad to hear that the self-experimentations are still going strong. Eternally, my friend, as long as I'm alive. I'm interested to know, has your strength, specifically your lifts, changed much for the better or for the worse since incorporating a more vegan ketogenic diet?" Excellent question. And I have been strictly keto for 3 weeks straight. I just hit my PR in the hex bar deadlift a week ago. I'm lifting 390 right after I did 380 3 times. So I'm guessing my max is probably around 410 for the hex bar squat, sorry. Looking forward to breaking 400. Weighing 145 pounds right now. I lost 5 pounds on the ketogenic diet so far. Now I'd also like to say I've definitely noticed some waves in it. There's a lot of variables. So the last few days I haven't been feeling as strong. My lifts haven't been as strong. But I've also been, like I said, surfing every morning, and I hit the spin bike every morning, a resistance spin bike, doing intermittent sprints for 20 seconds. Excuse me. About 3 of those every morning after surfing. And then I go and do certain lifts. I've been working on the incline press and hex bar deadlift, weighted dips, and weighted pull-ups. One of the variables that I think could also, probably 2 of the variables that have been lessening my strength in the last week, last few days, I've been doing more than 2 sets. I was on this trip of just doing 2 sets to intensity. Higher weight, lower reps, just 2 sets, but every day. Pretty much twice a day, because I train in the evening as well. Normally lifting the hex bar, doing some kind of dumbbell presses or handstand push-ups. So I've been going over that and doing like 3 sets of all those exercises, and that's probably been, exhausting me a little further than is ideal, which is why I was on the 2 set thing. So I'm going to go back to that and see how that works out for me. The other variable that has possibly been lessening my strength is the fact that I've also cut down my protein intake as of this last 4 or 5 days. 5 days. I'm back to around 50 grams. And I'm doing that because I can tell that takes a lot more energy for me to digest, and also the excess protein gets converted into sugars and can kick you out of ketosis, theoretically. I've heard people who don't have a problem. They still are measurably in nutritional ketosis, even ingesting higher amounts of protein. Potentially, my body's metabolism is not adapted well enough to do that yet. I have yet to be on a strictly ketogenic diet for a period of months. Up to 3 months is the number that I keep hearing. Dr. D'Agostino, I hopefully pronounce his name right, is one of my best sources of information in this world and for the ketogenic diet, and he says that there are certain adaptations. You're not really adapted to keto until at least 2 months, more like 3. And then he says there's even greater adaptations that happen on a genetic level, potentially up to a year of following ketogenic diet. So right now I'm on the edge of either going all in for 3 months on this, or I have another idea of intermittently loading carbs, which is what I was doing before. And I think I'd add those carbohydrates before I take my shake. Have the sugar, have the sweet in first, because the sugars and the fats, or the sugars and the proteins, do not digest well together as well or as easily as when they're taken separately. They go through different processes. So that's my, I'm meditating on that right now. Leaning toward just going full ketogenic because I haven't done that. But the lessening of the protein, I believe, has really helped my sleep. And the ease of the elixir, the digestion of the nutrition that I've been having, has definitely been helping my sleep. And I've really been enjoying that. So, going to continue that. Thank you for the question. And we have a lot of very interesting, I love the worldwide population getting to communicate here. Drezik Z Wooly. I probably totally messed that up. Have you been thinking about replacing soy with hemp, for example? Soy isn't really healthy, and most of it is GMO. Soy, soy, soy. What a controversy. I quit soy too based on certain channels of information that also said all of the negative side effects, mainly the phytoestrogens, and yes, the GMO aspect. It's much easier to get non-GMO soy these days. But what about the phytoestrogens? Amin Ra really helped break this inaccurate belief for me, because that's his main source of protein. And when I found out that that was what he was eating, I was like, doesn't he know better? But once I started to read his work, he has so much documented evidence of the benefits of soy, and specifically the phytoestrogens. The phytoestrogens are in large part the beneficial aspect of soy. Phytoestrogens have multiple benefits to them that have been documented over and over again. So I, especially since I was consuming so much soy for a period, as I was doing a higher protein for a while, really dug into the research on soy, just trying to find that. And basically, unless you're pregnant or you're an infant or you're a very, very small part of the population, something like 0.05%, and you have a rare genetic adaptation or metabolic mutation, you have nothing to worry about. Now, very high consumption, it's still a little iffy. It hasn't really been clearly defined, but as long as you're not going over 5 servings of soy a day, you can eat that chronically. That's what I have come to with my research 5 servings, which is roughly like 50 grams of protein in a whole food of soy like tempeh or tofu. Soy protein powders have even less isoflavonoids, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, isoflavones in them, which is the phytoestrogen. The way they're processed, they tend to have less isoflavonoids. So you can even consume more straight soy protein powder safely in that sense. I'm also consuming a lot of flax recently. Flax has been my main oil, and so I'm really diving into the research on that one, and it's not definitive. Same kind of thing, avoid it if you're pregnant or an infant, but there's so many benefits that come with it. It's an amazing food. I really want to get a lot of chia oil and try that as well, but flax, I'm digging. It's a majority of my fats right now. And as I said, I haven't found real clear evidence as to how the high consumption as I'm doing, how there's no research doing as high a level of consumption of flax oil as I am. So, it's definitely experimental, which is what I do. So here we are. Let's see what's next. He said, what millimeters, same question, same guy, what millimeters ratio of oils do you put in your shake? I've been using flax, sesame, pumpkin, coconut oils in my daily salad, but I don't really count the amount of calories. Milliliters. Sorry, I'm not as good. I think a tablespoon is 15 milliliters. I've been putting in, man, what does that come to? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do grams. I'm doing about 150 grams of oil, of fats in my smoothie. It comes to around 1,350 calories, and it's a majority of my calories, as I said. So yeah, that's a lot. And I put lecithin in it to emulsify it, increases the absorption, and also just makes the shake consistency a lot better. I also use gum arabic as a prebiotic fiber, and that fiber also is an emulsifier. So, man, let me tell you, when you make a shake with that much fat, it is so good. You know how you always loved milkshakes because they're so fatty, but you felt bad about it? It's like the opposite of that. Best news ever. So I've been really enjoying that. Yeah, it's a lot of fat. Like I said, the super questionable experiment that I'm on. And that brings me to my next question. My friend Quan Meme, probably messing that name up. Quan Meme posted a lot of links to the dangers of and the research on AGE's advanced glycative end products that come with oils, which is a very valid point, and he posted some good research studies. I really appreciate you guys sharing information. Helps me dive into this more deeply. And I was aware of the AGEs and also in particularly the ALES, advanced lipo-oxidative end products that come with oils. So I'm still diving into that research. I really appreciate him bringing that point up. It's an excellent point. I don't cook the oils. I try to find the freshest sources I can. I'm trying to actually get a CO2 extraction machine so I can press my own oils. Please, God, make that happen. So they're really fresh. So I'm diving into that research. I haven't found any real definitive numbers on that. There's this one study and they tested olive oil and it was high in ALES at 100 milliliters. So that's like, how many is that? 8 tablespoons. And around there. And they were pretty high in ALES. It was hitting your like RDA level. You want to stay under this amount of AGEs. And so there's not a lot of information on it. I'm diving into that. I really appreciate you sharing that insight. And anybody who finds more on that, please share it with me. I take it with vitamin E as well, a broad spectrum of, I think there's 8 different forms of vitamin E in this awesome supplement, and that helps prevent the oxidation and lessening amount of vitamin E in the muscle tissues, because I've seen that high fat diets, high oil diets can diminish the amount of vitamin E in the muscle probably because they're being used as an antioxidant. So I also take a higher amount of antioxidants considering I'm eating so much oil. Very interesting. This is my current fascination study. So I thank you for that input. Kwan Meme also asked multiple questions, so we'll just go down it. He said, what do you actually do on a daily basis? And I'm not sure where he's pointing that question, like practice-wise. I mean, I have a consistent practice, and there's a lot to it, so I don't know how far in. That's probably a whole video on itself, but as I said, ritually, I'll just go through some basics. In the morning, my morning ritual right now is to go into the ocean and surf. After I surf, I go into the gym and I train. I have been training resistance and sprints in the morning. And then I get to work. I manage a farm. I'm a chocolate farmer. Thank God. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And I manage a 3-acre property. We grow a lot of different types of herbs and fruits here, and that keeps me very busy. So I work on the farm for about 4 to 5 hours, depending on what's going on. It's like growing season right now. There's a lot of rain, a lot of sun too, so things grow rapidly. Following that, I also train people. I'm a personal trainer. Most of that has been in the direction of martial arts recently, training mostly women and children, and that's been really enjoyable. So I train people multiple times a week. I also do consultations. I have a few consultations a week, seems to be the consistency right now, the frequency. So those are what occupy me. That's my occupation and my work right now. Intermixed in that, I do a lot of experimentations. I like to make formulas. Because I eat such a specific diet, I find that I cannot find what I want to eat in the store. So I make all sorts of stuff. I'm constantly trying to formulate these impossible things like a keto bread that's delicious. All sorts of variables, all sorts of experiments that I enjoy doing. Farming, surfing, working, and I want to get more into contributing these videos, getting back to comments, and yeah. Then I train in the evening, and then I eat around 8 o'clock. That's a basic outline of my day. Next question. Do you have long-term goals, if I can ask? Do I have long-term goals? I definitely have things that I strive to achieve. I wish to create an abundance of wealth so that I can dive into my experiments, so that I can dive into my practice, cultivate the ideal environment around me, and have just the best experiences ever. I don't want to have the goal so structured, so solid that it can't break, because I'm open to the fact that God or life has a better imagination than I do. So there are greater things than I can imagine that I want that could come to me. My real ultimate goal, long-term goal, is liberation, enlightenment, to unfold myself to the highest of my potential. I want to see how far this thing can go, how great, how in depth I can know and reveal and expand myself. That's really what all of this is based on. All of my practices, my obsession with diet and training and meditation, my reasoning for placing myself in the best environment I can, is because I want to know the truth to the highest degree possible. I want to unfold as high and just to the greatest depth and expanse possible. I can use the metaphor of when I'm growing a fruit tree, when I'm growing a chocolate tree, I've really seen that when a certain tree is placed in the perfect environment, it gets the right sun at the right time of day, you feed it right, it's got the right microbes in the soil, you water it right, you love it up, talk to it, you prune it properly, that, wow, that tree will produce so much fruit. It's so beautiful. And the fruit from that is like, oh, mind-blowing. That is what I want to do to myself. And in order to do that, I have to collect the right practices, the right understanding from the broadest spectrum of practices and knowledge that I can access. Getting the right environment, the right nutrition, the right sleep, the right livelihood and service to the community. There's a lot of parts in that. So that's my long-term goal. I want to go all the way in this lifetime. I don't want to have to come back and do it again. I'm here now. So yes, I believe in reincarnation. And that can go further and further in depth. But that is my long-term goal, is to bring myself to the highest degree of fruiting as I possibly can. And contribute as much to the whole while doing that. Because I am on that stance. I follow the Hindu path of philosophy that Atman is Brahman, that the self is the whole. I am also the entirety of this existence. I am experiencing a fractal-like hologram of myself. Now, myself, as in Spencer-Mack, that's the tiny character, the temporary, one day will die and perish individual. But the I, the awareness, the one who's witnessing this behind this all, I believe is paradoxically all. We are all. You are all. And we're getting to experience ourselves. And the story of developing into and back to our completeness, our communion with ourselves. So that's my spiritual philosophy that I'm following to the best of my ability to explain an absolute paradox. And they say the best way to explain a paradox, or to explain the unity of all things, is with a paradox. So there you have it. Do you aim at another step to be transhuman? Is transhuman like cyborg status, where we use technology to upgrade our bodies or live longer? I'm not sure, because he asks a later question. He asked me if I'd ever read the book Live Long Enough to Live Forever. And I haven't read that book, but I like the theory. Potentially I could be open to some cyborg technology extending my life, but I want to do it by myself, ideally. And I don't know what that book is about, but I'm guessing that our understanding of medicine and healing is going to get to a certain point where we can perpetuate our lives and our bodies as long as we want to. There was an amazing study, hopefully, I might dig it up and find the link, where this scientist kept the cell of a heart cell of a chicken alive for 30 years in a petri dish. And then he died, but the cell kept living. And for 3 more years, his partners kept the cell alive. And they did that by feeding the cell everything that it needed to sustain itself. Isn't that amazing? And the partners just shut down the study after 3 years. The cell never died. And I believe those cells live something like a week themselves. So basically what I get from that, as long as the environment and the nutrition is there, we can maintain and perpetuate health. So yeah, that is my goal. I want to perpetuate and cleanse this body to the highest degree possible, so that I can experience, so that I can bring my mind and my meditation to that point, to that understanding, to that reunification or communion I was speaking of. Because if your body is in pain, if your body is diseased, it's a lot harder to meditate. It's like trying to drive when you have a bunch of junk on your windshield. If you can't see clearly, you have this delay, this distortion to reality, and you're not going to know the truth. So cleansing the body, I find, is a necessary part of reaching that state that I'm shooting for. Wow. I feel like this spiritual stuff is definitely fringe. It's on the edge. So it's interesting to speak of. There's so many different beliefs, and we hold so strongly to our religions and our perceptions because they support our entire reality. So when somebody challenges that and expresses something differently, anger tends to come up. And so it definitely makes me a little anxious when I speak of these fringe things, even though I really believe it's of value to bring that anger up, if that is the fact, and of value to have my beliefs challenged by people when they hear them. So there you have it. Have you been looking for something about nootropics? I believe he's speaking of nootropics and herbs increasing brain function. I'm very interested in that. I did use mainly herbs like gotu kola or brahmi for things like that, and got more into nootropics, like the racetam family, piracetam and racetam. These stimulate cognitive function, have been demonstrated to enhance memory, verbal fluency, clarity of mind, and I believe those things are very valuable. I do still take them. I do enjoy them because when we can get the mind in a right place, the mind directs this whole operation. So I'm very interested in those things and am currently experimenting in those. I find them fascinating. Even caffeine is considered a nootropic to some degree because it does enhance cognitive function. My particular blend that I really enjoy recently is mixing L-theanine with caffeine. L-theanine is an amino acid, and it helps calm things down. It's like a relaxed awareness. And when mixing that with caffeine, it gives you this awesome balance, right? We have both extremes, we get this nice balance. So I'm experimenting with some things like that, and I really particularly enjoy that blend. I've gotten to a point where coffee is too stimulating to me. I can't do caffeine without L-theanine now, so I'm really enjoying that. Yeah, he said, did you see the movie Limitless? I know it's just a fiction, but there's always in every legend a grain of truth. Well said. Many topics on longevity and Reddit don't lie. I do agree. I do enjoy both those forums as well. A lot of good resource in there. And that looks like the questions for today, my friends. I really appreciate the conversation, the communication, and man, yes, what an epic experience we're in. Lots of trials and lots of pain. I must say, I want to bring up there some very people who are very close to me have been going through some intense trials, and life is not easy. It's difficult. Life, in fact, is pain. I know it's a tough way to put it, but when you are a feeling being, it hurts. And being persistent, consistent, just not giving up and knowing there is a solution. If there is a problem, there is a solution. We're living in a dualistic world. There is always a balance. If there's dark, there's light. If there's pain, there's love. So pursue, persevere, stick with it. You will find the resolution, and then that depth of pain will give you an even greater feeling of joy, having that contrast. So patience, my friends. Lots of love. Much appreciate the questions, and until next time, aloha.